Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Cyril Martin, Communication Officer, and I'm very glad to see you again for this new webinar. Today, the idea is to give you a taste of the upcoming ERTMS conference, which is fast approaching. So, first things first. In case you missed it, I'd like to remind you that the conference will take place from the 23rd of April to the 25th of April in Valenciennes, not far from the agency's headquarters. If you're interested in attending, I strongly encourage you to register as soon as possible. Seats are limited, and once again this year, it's shaping up to be a success. To register and for all practical information, agenda, location, fees, etc., you can scan the QR code displayed now and on each slide of the presentation of this webinar. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask them in the webinar chat. We'll try to answer them live, and we'll also set aside some time at the end of the webinar to address a few questions orally. And if you still have questions after the webinar, you can ask them via the email that you can see on the slide, ertms2024@era.europa.eu. One last thing to mention that, as usual, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and website as soon as possible. Now it's my greatest pleasure to hand over to my colleague, João Gaspar, who will tell you more about the webinar content. Thank you all for being here today. João, please.
Many thanks, Cyril. My name is João Gaspar, Project Officer of the Academy, and I would like to introduce you and welcome our viewers at home to this ERTMS 2024 conference. It's going to be a very hands-on conference this year, and we are more than delighted to give you this fantastic panel here with the speakers that will go through the 3 days with you, starting with Joe Debuscher, our head of the ERTMS units at the agency. Then we'll have some words from Kirk Fitch, head of rail safety and interoperability at the DG Move, and followed by our executive director, Mr. Joseph Doppelbauer, Michel Husen, Managing Director of the UG, Thomas Chatelet, my colleague project officer at the agency as well, Klaus Mindel, General Manager of UNICIG, and finishing with Giorgio Travaini, Acting Executive Director of Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking. And now, without further ado, I will give the floor to Joe Debuscher, who is going to talk to us about the workshops. The workshops this year will vary from ETCS system compatibility to certification and authorization and many, many more and more. So, Joe, what can you tell the viewers at home or in their office today what to expect from these workshops on the first day? Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, João. So, welcome everybody to the webinar. As already said, also this year for the conference, we've organized a lot of very interesting workshops. Why we are doing those workshops? Because we are listening to you as participants. We received feedback from the last ERTMS conference that these workshops are very appreciated. Workshops also give the possibility to have a good exchange of view, to have a discussion in smaller groups on different topics. And most of the topics that you will see when we go through it are directly related or indirectly related to ERTMS and ERTMS implementation. What about the concept? So it is foreseen that there will be 3 sessions of workshops. So each workshop takes 1 hour and a half. And we have 3 sessions from them. We are starting around 1 o'clock on the first day with the workshops, and then it gives you the possibility as a participant to choose between a list of more than 10 workshops. Out of them, you can choose 3 of them to attend. So what to expect from the workshops? As I already said, there are very many different topics that are covered during the workshops, and sometimes the format also is a little bit different. So on one hand, we have workshops that will focus on giving information and giving the possibility to raise questions. So it's more a Q&A session. Other workshops We'll go more in detail and we'll focus on gathering inputs from you as a participant to get insights on very specific topics. And then we also see that some focus in some workshops, the focus is more on the short term, so what we are doing today, tomorrow, and others are more focusing on the longer term from the upcoming next years, what has to be done. So a quick overview. I will not go in detail of each of every workshop, but give you some first flavors. So first workshop, it's about outputs of EURL and standardization and TSI input plan, also known as the STIP. For the time being, it's being reviewed. The sector had opportunities to comment on the STIP. And EURL, they are working on integrating these comments, and there is also an alignment between the STIP and a future mandate for the TSI. So people from EURL will explain what is the standardization TSI input plan, where they are, and what to expect in the coming months and years from this STIP or TSI input plan. The second workshop is about human and organizational factors. We know that ERTMS is a technical system, but we should also have a very good look on the human. So human and organizational factors are in many cases linked with how the train driver gets information, how to react, what is the influence of going to more automatization, and so on. So this is really a hands-on workshop to explain how human and organizational factors should be integrated when designing ERTMS. Third workshop is about operational harmonization. We know that if we want to, in the near future, come to a single European railway area, we should, as much as possible, align on operational harmonization. And this is a big work stream also in Europe's rail to see how can we come to that operational harmonization by going to ERTMS radio-based system without line-side signals as a first step, but maybe also we have to look at to the underlying systems like interlockings. What is the influence of those systems on operational harmonization? So this will be discussed in workshop 3. Then we have workshop 4, optimization or how to optimize costs for ERTMS lifecycle for trackside and onboards. We all know that ERTMS is a very good system, but we also know that especially when we see some reports for onboards, it can be quite an expensive investment for the onboards. So in this workshop, we will have a look at it, how those costs, the breakdown of those costs, and how to work on certain elements to come to a better life cycle cost for ERTMS. Workshop number 5 is about ERTMS deployment and how is there a possibility to accelerate it. Very recently, in the 10T guidelines that will be published soon, there are quite some challenging dates. So, for example, 2030 is put as the date to have the core network in Europe equipped with ETCS. This will be a huge challenge to realize that. So in this workshop, we will reflect on what are the possibilities to do an acceleration of trackside and onboard deployment to meet those requirements as put forward in the 10T regulation. Number 6 is a workshop by ERA, ETCS and radio system compatibility checks on the way to progressively phase it out, ? So in 2019, ESC RSC was introduced in the TSI. On one hand, to have a visibility on all the types of national testing programs that were there. So kind of replacement or making it visible what was done in each country. And now we see after 4 or 5 years of applying these ESCs that there are some pros and cons on ESCs, and sometimes it's too costly, sometimes it takes a lot of time, sometimes it's questions if this is meaningful. So as agency, we have to deliver a report to the Commission in June. We already sent out a questionnaire to feed this report, but we also take opportunity with this workshop to go in discussion with you to double check some of first things we already collected, to have a double check with you, and to have the possibility to enrich the report for ESC RSC phasing out. So very important workshop for us. Number 7, it's called From Certification to Authorization, Challenges and Issues. So this is will be a workshop moderated by NSA and NOBOS to see once we have the products available, what has to be done on certification, what has to be done on authorization, how to streamline it, what are the challenges. So I think quite interesting to see how we come from products to systems to authorization and putting in service the different systems. Then number 8, also I think a very hot topic, how to successfully introduce FRMCS on EU network and on vehicles. So also here we see that introduction of FRMCS will be quite a big challenge, because the end of GSMR is already announced and FRMCS is still, I would say, under development. So we are facing a lot of challenges to see, on one hand, the specifications of FRMCS are under his way to be produced. Then we will have a phase of testing those specifications before we can go to a publication of stable specifications ready for the suppliers to produce their products. But then we will have to look also how to introduce it in each network, how to introduce it on European scale. Should there be a coordination between the different networks? Is there a role for Europe to have more a kind of European deployment plan? So all this kind of questions will be put in the workshop with the aim to gather your feedbacks in this workshop and give this feedback back to the Commission and Europe's Rail also, who's working on possible migration schemes for introduction of FRMCS. Workshop number 9, CCS target and migration, EU Rail system pillar approach. Here it's from the colleagues from the system pillar, based on an interactive section, an interactive session to explain a bit how they see the target architecture for CCS, also looking at how to go to that target architecture, but it's good to have a view where to be in X years, but also to see what is the way to migrate to that target architecture. Then we have a workshop on trackside approval. This is really a workshop to give an update on where we are in the agency with trackside approval. How do we manage it? What kind of information do we request, when and how? So also a lot of practical information will be shared here by our colleagues that are handling trackside approval. And then we have workshop on the DAC program and the interaction with ERTMS. As you might all know, the update of the CCS TSI last year already integrated what we call the DAC readiness. So meaning that from ETCS side on, we are expecting informations coming from DAC to be used, for example, for supervised maneuvers, but also when we're looking at the ETCS level 2 without train detection system. So taking advantage of the possibility to have train length and train integrity delivered by systems. So this is what this is all about. DAC, where are they, and what will be the interface with the ETCS onboards. Then we have a workshop, how can braking curves be adapted to a more realistic behavior of rolling stock? We already introduced some modifications or adaptations to the braking curves in the CCS TSI, but we still see that there is still maybe a possible room for improvement. So this workshop is a little bit to explain what kind of improvements can there all still be done on the braking curve model. On one hand, looking at the ergonomics for the train driver, maybe also making the link with HOF. And on the other hand, this could also be an opportunity to have a better capacity management of the line. And then, last but not least, the last workshop is on the CCS TSI 2023. Insights with a focus on the transition regime or scheme and the error correction process explained. We already had some Q&A webinars last year on this theme, and we still see that there is a lot of questions ongoing on this transition regime. So we decided here to have, and this is more, as I said, a kind of Q&A session. Then on one hand, we will explain how the transition regime works, how the error correction process will work, and then it's up to you as a participant to come up with your questions to see if you have well understood what we have tried to explain in this workshop. So I think it's really a quite interesting program, all those different workshops, and I hope to see you there next month in one of them. Many thanks.
Many thanks to you, Joe. Quite a busy day. Very interesting. So the workshops are actually quite popular, and I'm very pleased to say that some of them are already fully booked. But please, if you're still thinking about attending the conference, do not hesitate, because we still have some places there for you. And once you finish this busy afternoon on day 1, we will move to day 2, where we'll start with session 1. And session 1 is about the ERTMS status and outlook, and it's moderated by our DG Move Kier Fitch. Kier, would you be able to tell us a few words about what our viewers can expect from this session on the second day? The floor is yours.
Yes, so many thanks. And indeed, we kick off day 2 of the conference with a session which, as you hear, I will moderate, in which we will have some of the key players, both from the regulatory side, from the Commission, and from the industry, essentially to talk you through the state of play on ERTMS deployment and rollout as it currently stands. So you will be hearing from my director, Christian Schmidt, and also from Matthias Ruther, who is the Commission's ERTMS coordinator. And Matthias's role is, of course, to go around Europe, making contact with all of the IMs, with the ministries, with the rest of the industry, to try and ensure that the deployment plans that we have set for ERTMS in the context of the 10Ts are actually met. And so Matthias will be able to give you a lot of feedback on where we still see issues, where we collectively need to work together better to ensure we deliver ERTMS on time, how we deal with some of the upcoming technical issues. And you've already heard the huge challenge we will face, for example, in addressing the transition from GSMR to FRMCS. Of course, not only do we need the technological solutions, but we need transition pathways to do that in as pain-free a manner as possible across the industry, and we need to find out how we're going to pay for it. So Christian and Matthias, I think between them, will be able to give you the view from the Commission perspective on how we will face those issues. Of course, it's important not just to hear from the Commission as the regulator, but also from the industry on how we will face and address these challenges going forward. But of course, also how we actually fully utilise ERTMS, because ERTMS is not a burden to the industry, it shouldn't be seen as a burden to the industry, but it is actually a great opportunity for the future to improve the reliability, the safety, but also the capacity and flexibility of the railway system. So we will be hearing after Matthias also from Michael Peter, who is the chairman of Unife currently and also the CEO of Siemens Mobility. So one of the key players on the manufacturing side on the rollout and development of ERTMS. And after him, we will also hear from Alberto Mazzola, the Secretary General of CER, the Community of European Railways. He will clearly give the perspective of the railways, both RUs and IMs, but in particular, he is advocating strongly for a much more European programme to deliver ERTMS across the Union. And this, of course, is because ERTMS was always foreseen as a tool to ensure that we actually did join up the European network as a single system, that we reduced costs and we included much greater flexibility for rolling stock suppliers in producing their products and allowing them to be readily deployed across the whole of the Union. But because ERTMS rollout has been even many years or several decades into the process, because that process has been much slower and more complex than we've hoped for in the past, we have not delivered some of those benefits yet. So Alberto will be explaining how he sees a European programme as overcoming some of those issues. And then finally, in our session, we will hear from Marie-Louise Dominguez, who is the chair of EIM, the European Infrastructure Managers, comes also from ARIF in Spain. So she will be sharing with us how ERTMS deployment has been seen as a key tool or a key enabler of the liberalisation of the railway system, which of course is also one of the fundamental priorities of the Commission in terms of making rail more attractive, more successful. So Maria Luisa will be sharing with us how, particularly in Spain, that use of the ERTMS has actually now allowed a significant and so far very successful opening of the market, and therefore sharing how better deployment of the ERTMS across the Union can, we hope, actually facilitate that much stronger rail system, which is, I think, dear to all of our hearts. So that this session, the morning session, should, I hope, provide all attendees at the conference with a strong overview of where all of the key players in the industry see ERTMS as heading, how we hope we can further strengthen ERTMS as a tool for the railways of the future, but of course also how we can address some of the significant issues, some of the difficulties that have arisen. So I hope that will provide a very good springboard into the rest of the conference, and I look forward to seeing many of you in the audience on that day. Many thanks, and back to you.
Many thanks, Keir, and thanks for this nice overview of session one. Interesting to see what this European perspective will be, and I'm pretty sure you'll have plenty of questions during the session. Following your session, we now move to session two, which will talk about the legal framework And who better to talk about it than our agency's Executive Director, Mr. Joseph Doppelbauer. Joseph, what can you say about session 2 that you'll be moderating? And can you please give us some words about what to expect on this day? Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Many thanks, Joao, and good afternoon, everyone. As we have heard in the introduction and by Jo, the 2024 edition of the ERTMS conference will focus on deployment projects across Europe, but deployment has to be based on a solid legal framework, and the agency as system authority for ERTMS has been very active in contributing to the new TSI 22-23, which also includes the new specifications for ERTMS. So a significant part of session 2 will be about explaining the new specifications, the CCS specifications inside this new TSI. And it will, of course, explain on the one hand the key changes in the topics, and as you know, we have added the so-called game changers with this edition of the TSI, modularity in particular, also the automatic train operation ATO for the grade of automation 2, and the preparatory measures for the new radio system, the future rail mobile communication system, ERTMS. So a second part of the second panel will be about ERTMS. We will have a colleague from UIC explaining the current status of development of ERTMS as successor of GSMR. This is of particular importance because unfortunately GSMR will become obsolete, and there will be the necessity to migrate to ERTMS, which of course needs to be managed in an appropriate manner. Last but not least, we will also discuss about the future of the CCS TSI in the framework of the interaction with the system pillar within Europe's rail joint undertaking, and the European Commission will explain us what will be in the so-called standardization and implementation plan STIP, which will then also lead into the TSI mandate or the request that the Commission will send to the agency. We will also explain, of course, what are the consequences of the new TSIs for applicants that submit their applications for vehicle authorizations to the agency, and also their applications for the ERTMS trackside approval. We will then possibly have some lively interaction on the ERTMS, and let me finish my introduction by just reminding all of you that by the end of April we are also approaching a significant milestone, not only for the European Union Agency for Railways, but also for the entire European railway sector, because on the 1st of May of 2024, ERA will celebrate its 20th birthday. And during these 20 years, ERTMS has been a key element of our work. Therefore, we have, at the last day of the conference, on the 25th, also scheduled the celebration of 20 years of the agency. We will have the immense pleasure, of course, inviting all participants of the conference also to the birthday party of the agency on Thursday, the 25th. With that, I hand back to you, Joao. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Joseph. And it's really glad to see that it's not only just a conference, but also a birthday party of the agency. So please join us and celebrate with us not just ERTMS, but also the 20 years of the creation of ERA. And to talk about it after lunchtime on that day, we have an interesting session, session number 3, which talks about ERTMS implementation and operation. People, some more skeptical than others, have asked, okay, so what is currently happening with ERTMS? Is it out there already? Is it working? Where is it being deployed? And in order to tell us a little bit about this, I have here the Managing Director of EUG, Michel Rousseau, and I will invite Michel to the floor to talk us about what can we expect from your session on this day. Michel.
Thank you, João, and indeed welcome everybody. Good afternoon. You almost took the floor already completely for me, João, by explaining what this session is about. So maybe I should not repeat that, but it is about ERTMS here and now, the deployment. We will start in this session with explaining the updated Swiss ERTMS strategy. You may know that Swiss is, of course, one of the countries where already for many years ERTMS is covering all of the network. So ERTMS trains are able to run in Switzerland. The original strategy was to very quickly also then go and change interlockings and ERTMS going to, instead of level 1, what is now the case, to go to level 2. And we will hear from the ministry, Raphael Schumacher and Patrick Favre, about how they look upon that at this moment, after a couple of years of experience, looking at the developments which are there. So what is an update of the Swiss strategy, which is very interesting, I think, also for other countries to check on their own strategies. Having done that, which is a little bit more high-level thing, we go slightly more to the applications. We will start for a change, I would say, with an Eastern European country. We will start with the Czech Republic, where Radek Čech of the infrastructure manager Sprava Čelesnik will explain about the implementation plans which are there on the track side. And Jindřich Kuznier from the Ministry of Transport will also highlight what is done then for the railway undertaking side. So we will try to focus on the complete system, not only the track side or the onboards, but both of them. So that will be about the Czech rollout, which is, I would say, for the first time that we do that in these conferences. So that would also be very interesting. It's also one of the first times that we talk about implementation of ERTMS in Eastern European countries. So at least at the national rollout level. So that will also be very interesting. Then we will hand over to Italy. Or switch over to Italy. Of course, we discuss that more often, but as you know, there's an immense program in Italy. So it's very interesting also to check on where are we then in Italy? What are the issues facing both the infrastructure managers and the railway undertakings over there? And for that reason, Fabio Senesi of RFI and Marco Caposciuti from Trenitalia will explain where Italy is at the moment, both on the track side and on the onboard deployment. Then following that, and because we are, well, not because, but the next one is the explanation of Belgium. Where is Belgium at the moment with the rollout of ERTMS? Probably many of you know that the progress is impressive over there, but that's also logical because the promise is that in 2025, end of 2025, the whole country is deployed with ERTMS. So also that will be explained, and also the issues over there will be addressed by Jochen Boltink of Infrabel. And then also for something completely different, we will then have a presentation from Mr. Zoran Jeftik from Serbian Rail to explain about the first implementations of ERTMS in Serbia. And this is the modernization of the Belgrade-Budapest line, where they will install also ETCS So that is, I think, also something completely new and probably very interesting for everybody. Last but not least, then we will look at what are the feelings, emotions, experiences from the leasing companies. As you know, they are always a special kind of the sector, because they have a completely different view on those things. They were also one of the first to start with implementation of ERTMS in their onboards. They have facing, of course, also the issues of upgrading from baseline 2 to baseline 3 and so on and so forth. So it will be probably very interesting to listen to Ross Shepherd and Rainer Bella from Beacon Rail on their experiences. Well, that more or less concludes the session 3. Of course, we will then also address questions and answers in that session. But that's about session 3. So I can highly recommend it. I give over to you again, Zhao.
Many thanks, Michel. Quite impressive and quite interesting, I'm sure. People are keen in understanding what is being done out there, and I'm sure that we'll have a lot of people attending the session and asking questions, which then will take us nicely to session 4, the last session of that day, moderated by my colleague Thomas Chatelet from specialized in the radio part. And that's about the future railway mobile communication system, which is, as you heard, meant to replace GSMR when it's phased out. Thomas, what can we expect from your session on this day? Please take the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joao. Indeed, I've been given the most challenging session of that day, not because of the topic, but because it will be the session, the last one for the day. And I expect most of the people looking forward to the cocktail in the evening. So we will have to be very, very interactive and to bring added value on the discussion to the audience. Otherwise, it will be a normal death by PowerPoint session, and this is exactly what we want to avoid. So in order to mitigate this risk, we will try to give to the audience an interactive session, and we will have a 1 hour and 15 minutes discussion around FRMCS from the various angles that requires us to deep dive. So the first angle will be obviously the European angle. So we will benefit from the presence of the European Commission, DG Move, but also EU Rail to take on the topics such as the policy in support of FRMCS and the wished European coordinated approach for FRMCS deployment. And from EU Rail, we will hear from the testing activities in support of FRMCS. We all know that an EU trial on FRMCS is on the timeline for a successful FRMCS deployment, and also about the deployment group. That is one of the pillars from EU Rail that will probably very much contribute to a successful deployment of FRMCS. Then we will have a take from the user perspective. So we will benefit from the presence of representatives from Traffic Verket and from SNCF Réseau to give us an infrastructure manager insight on what are the challenges and what are the strategies with regards FRMCS deployment as a successor system for FRMCS. They will also elaborate on the national tests that are going to happen for successful FRMCS introduction. And we will have also a representative from a railway undertaking in the presence of Deutsche Bahn, presenting as well a very interesting initiative, the Fahrzeugmigration FRMCS sector initiative, that is providing the German response to the challenges, especially on the RU side, how to be prepared for FRMCS deployment. And then we will have obviously hands-on from UIC on the status of FRMCS specification roadmap in complement to what will be given already in session 2 to understand better, and especially because at that time the EECT process at ERA will have started for the validation of the set of V2 specifications for FRMCS. So we will have a very interesting hands-on on the preparation of that set of specification, and also on the preparation of the EU trial. And last but not least, we will have the support of Unitel representatives to tell us more about the product availability for FRMCS. So what is the roadmap for onboard, trackside, and dispatcher products, but also a hint on the remaining technical challenges. And all that guided in a scripted discussion of 1 hour and 15 minutes, leading us gently to the conclusions of the day and then the cocktail.
Many thanks, Thomas. I think people will stay before the cocktail for your session. Looks quite interesting and promising, so no worries that. And of course, then we'll have the cocktail to celebrate and to continue to the next day. And coming to the next day and our final day, we arrive starting with a very interesting session in the morning, and that's talking about good practices and implementation of ERTMS, where we'll talk about cost efficiency, time optimization, and optimization of system compatibility testing as well. And for that, I will invite to the floor Klaus Mindel, the General Manager of UNISIG under the umbrella of UNIFE. Klaus, what can you tell us about this session on the first part of the day?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to introduce here a bit session 5, which is opening the second day, the last day of the conference, I mean. Yeah, session 5 is also about ERTMS implementation, but more with a thematic perspective. So for some important and critical topics, recommendations and good practices will be shared, and we have invited speakers from different organizations, ensuring a sufficiently broad view. The first presentation you mentioned already, it's about cost. It is certainly not a surprise that this is a hot topic. And the title, How to Achieve a Cost-Efficient Approach when Deploying ERTMS, already indicates that this is not just about cost, but about cost efficiency, which is a slight difference. Besides, this is a joint presentation considering the experiences from railways and suppliers' perspective. So Gabriele de Plessis and Roland Stadelbauer, they will describe the different kinds of cost drivers and the way how those cost drivers can be addressed. So you may expect indeed relevant insights from the presentation of Gabriele and Roland. The second presentation is about testing. Testing is, of course, an essential part of product development and system integration process. And the ERTMS accredited labs play an important role here in testing of ERTMS. We will hear from SEDEX as one of the EAL members, how time and resources can be optimized when testing ERTMS. And here we will see Jorge Iglesias from SEDEX on behalf of EAL will give the presentation. He will certainly reflect his broad and long-lasting experiences he gained during his career. That will be followed by another topic on certification. So is certification of ERTMS an undiscovered territory for you? Well, that's then indeed the right presentation for you. Facing certification process in an efficient and effective way is the title of Tizia Lo's presentation. She will speak on behalf of NB Rail about this extremely important topic, sharing with you some recommendations you should also take into account. Yes, ETCS is a cost, as frequently managed, but we should not underestimate the benefits we can gain with ETCS, of course. The presentation of Nicolas Furnes and Vincent Passot is also a joint one. ensuring a more holistic prospect. The properties ETCS has to offer today are substantial. What is helpful is indeed to understand how to get the best performance out of and with ETCS. So Nicolas and Vincent will have definitely some valuable recommendations for you. The last presentation is also about testing, which is ETCS system compatibility testing, ESC in short. So this test was introduced some years ago with the intention to confirm the interoperability of onboard and trackside equipment under operational conditions. Unfortunately, the scope and usage changed over time into, let's say, a more critical direction. And that was the motivation to investigate the status of ESC testing and the development of proposals to address the observed issues. And here, 3 colleagues will let us know where we are with the assessment. I'm pleased to announce here Michel van Lieferinge, Dirk Feigenspan, and Hartwig Schuster as presenters of this, I think, very important topic. And they will explain how ETCS testing campaigns can be optimized. So all in all, the presentations of session 5 should find your interest, and I would be more than happy to welcome all the participants of this webinar also to the ERTMS conference 2024, in particular session 5, of course. Thank you.
Many thanks, Klaus. I'm pretty sure that people will want to find more about how to optimize their testing and also how to reduce costs during ERTMS implementation. After your session, we'll now reach session 6, and it's to talk about the outlook for the future. And in that session, we will look at the URail system pillar and innovation pillar, the outcomes and objectives. For that, I will call to the floor Giorgio Travaini, the head of program. Giorgio, can you please tell us a bit about your session and what we can expect from it on the day?
Thank you, Joao. And first of all, hello, everyone. I'm very happy that Europe's Rail is participating and contributing also this year to the ERTMS conference. I think that your last conference will be very much interesting, and I exhort all of you to attend because I'm also looking forward for interesting discussion. So in the session 6, we will have an outlook to the future, and I will have the honor to chair this session and trying to moderate a bit the discussion. The first element is that we will present to you the important work of Europe's Rail, being important not because it's Europe's Rail, but because it's done by the sector, by you, in collaboration with the European Union. So we want to reach important objectives of the European Union, and we're doing it really all together in collaboration with the European Union Agency for Railways. And this is why we are there showing our work to you, but also exhorting you to participate to this work. And it's mainly about we will focus mainly about the link with the CCS and in general ERTMS and all the work of the agency. After this brief introduction of the work of Europe's Rail and our collaboration and synergies, we will then divide in 2 panels. So the first panel, it will be a dialogue panel between railways and suppliers. So you can expect, and I hope, some good discussion. But this discussion is not to create tension. It's really to make sure that we find a way to have a greater harmonization for future developments of ERTMS and how do we achieve it all together. It includes also the discussion on difficult topics, but the difficult topics which are essential for us to achieve this aim, and in particular is the operational harmonization. So I will look forward to these discussions on those issues. Don't hesitate to ask questions and intervene. There will be representatives from Thales involved, a representative from Siemens, from Deutsche Bahn Infrago, from SNCF, and from Network Rail. So you can see that the panel will be quite interested, and this panel one will be moderated by my colleague Ian. Then we will have a second panel during this session, which will look into future opportunity, but also threat. So we will be looking on opportunities to enhance ERTMS, for example, through enhanced positioning system, including the use of satellite, but also new opportunity that comes from the implementation of the digital automatic coupler and how all of these links with ERTMS, for example, in terms of train integrity. And we will also look to the threats, as I said, aside, and this approach of Europe's rail towards improve cybersecurity, and this is also a key element that the agency is looking at. And also there you will have the possibility to hear discussion from the colleagues from the agency as well as from Siemens, but also colleagues from the European Union Space Agency as well for what concerns satellite. And then you will have many other speakers from which to listen to, but interact with as well. So overall, I hope that our session will be dynamic, and being the last session will end up with a kick before the celebration of the 20 years anniversary of ERTMS.
Many thanks, Giorgio. I'm pretty sure it will be quite interesting. And after that session, we will come to the wrap-up, given a speech by Joseph Doppelbauer, which will then finish the conference, and then followed by a couple of visits, technical visits, one to Multitel, another to Infrabel. Or if you are unable, or if you want to stay and join us for the celebration of the 20 years, by all means, feel free to do so, as our executive director have asked. And I would like to thank all the speakers today, and you will see them live on the spot on those 3 days in the conference. So I now give the floor back to my colleague Cyrielle. Cyrielle, please.
Thank you very much, Joao. Let me also thank warmly, well, first you, Joao, thank you very much. And of course, today's speakers, Jo, Kier, Joseph, Michel, Thomas, Klaus, and Giorgio for the time you have dedicated to us today. And in the backstage, that's important. The webinar is a team effort. I would also like to thank Juan, Archanco, David, and Rosa for your help and support. So we are indeed reaching the end of this webinar. So there is no question now on the chat, but we've replied privately to some very specific questions that we received during the webinar. So if you have any question that pops up after the webinar, you can send an email to the address ertms2024@era.europa.eu. And again, if you're interested in attending the conference, I again strongly encourage you to register as soon as possible. So you can scan the QR code that you see right now on the screen. Now, other than the conference, a few minutes to tell you that we look forward to meeting you again at one of our upcoming events and trainings. First, be informed that from the 14th to the 16th of May, there will be a new session of the Investigating SMS training. You can register via our website. Then, from the 28th of May till the 10th of June, the agency is organizing an organizational just culture training that is open to any rail professional. You can also register to this training via our website. On the 18th of June in Valenciennes, there will be another safety leadership training. Registration to that one is also open. And at the same time, on the 18th and 19th of June, there will be the very first edition of the Rail Data Forum that will take place in Verona, Italy. Registration will open very soon. You can find more information about this on our website. As you can see, it's an exciting and eventful spring ahead of us. Having said that, if you would like to stay updated on our activities, you can always check our website and sign into our database by selecting the button Login on our website page. And of course, you can follow us whenever you want on our social media accounts, X and LinkedIn. I thank you for your attention. I wish you a very good afternoon. Bye.